The killer speaks. The brutal murderer in North Carolina has spoken from his prison cell, and they're leaning into schizophrenia, mental illness. That's not what this story is. This is about evil. And we're going to break it all down for you. And Whoopi Goldberg's going to explain all the important nuances. You're going to love that. Also, Kamala Harris throwing the Bidens under the bus as excerpts of her book have been released. Morning Joe team is stunned by what they read. She's an awful human being, and we're loving it. Plus, huge economic news today, and all of the reporters and hosts and teleprompter readers on your major financial networks, they don't know what to make of it because they're all so smart. They knew exactly what was going to happen with Trump and the tariffs and the BLS unemployment numbers, and it was all going to come crashing down, and now things are actually quite good, and well, they don't know what to do with themselves. But we know what to do. Point and laugh. That's all coming up right now. My name is Larry O'Connor. Oh, hey. We're brought to you by Birch Gold. My name is Larry O'Connor. You can call me Larry. Overwhelming response from you yesterday in the chat and in the comment section about where you first heard about the show. If you didn't participate in our informal poll, please share it today. I think it's very cool. You guys like seeing where other people discovered this show. A lot of you found us just on the basic YouTube algorithm. You saw me filling in for Sean Spicer on Two-Way, or you saw me on Newsmax, or you heard me filling in for Mark Levin, or you're longtime listeners on my radio show in Washington, D.C. Whatever the reason, we'd love to hear from you. This is valuable information that we use for growing this program. So add that to the chat or to the comments if you're watching on demand. And in the meantime, subscribe. And please like our show today, because it means the world to us and it costs you nothing. I mean, come on. It's easy. It's free. Help us out, will you? Thanks. When inflation jumps, when you hear the national debt is over $37 trillion, when you see turmoil around the world, you may stop and think to yourself, maybe I should buy gold now. I've been putting it off forever. Yeah, whether as a hedge against inflation, a sensible diversification, Birch Gold Group, our buddies over at Birch Gold Group, they believe that every American should own physical gold, and they want to make it super easy for you. So they really set something up special for September. Until September 30th, if you're a first-time gold buyer, Birch Gold is offering a rebate of up to $10,000 in free metals on qualifying purchases. Well, at $10,000. I'm sorry, Mr. Moneybags, you can just walk away from a $10,000 offer? No, you can't. So why don't you claim eligibility right now and start the process? Request an info kit right now. Text my name, Larry, to 989898. Birch Gold, by the way, also helps you roll an existing IRA or 401k into an IRA in gold. And you're still eligible for that rebate and free metals up to $10,000. Make right now the time for you to contact Birch Gold. Take advantage of a rebate up to $10,000 when you buy by September 30th. Text my name, Larry, 989898. Claim your eligibility today. Larry, text that to 989898. Thank you. We now have the first words out of the mouth of that maniac, evil murderer in Charlotte, North Carolina. This, of course, after we've all been stunned by the release of the full video of that horrific act. None of us will ever be the same after witnessing it. I'm going to let you hear what this murderer had to say. But first, we go to the president of the Mensa Club over there at The View. She's Whoopi Goldberg. And apparently Whoopi's appearance brought to you by Ozempic. Good for you, Whoops. She wants to lecture you about what you really should be thinking and focusing on. Because, see, a lot of people see that video and you're terrified for your daughters or your granddaughters or for your sisters or for your wives. And you recognize that we are all vulnerable in places where we should have the right to feel safe. You know, public transportation that we all pay for. Why do we always have to feel like we're this close to being a victim of a horrible, violent crime? That's the natural thing to experience when you see that video. But no. Whoopi Goldberg is very disappointed in you, America. So listen to her as she explains everything to you.
A young woman is dead. Let's take that into consideration. And yes, a man who should have been behind bars was loose and out. He was a schizophrenic man. His mother begged them to take him and put him away. So stop politicizing this. This is not political. This has to do with how we take care of our sick Americans when they are in need.
There you go. He's just a sick American in need. Boy, do I hate hearing crap like this. Don't politicize this. Because certainly Whoopi Goldberg and Joy Behar and the gang on The View never politicize a horrific, violent criminal act. They would never do such a thing. Whether it's a school shooting or, a boy standing on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial as a maniac Native American beats a drum in his face while he's wearing a MAGA hat. They would never politicize things like that. They would never politicize a out of context video of a criminal resisting arrest and a police officer having to manhandle them to try to get them subdued and controlled so that that police officer can protect society. No, they would never, ever politicize incidents like that, would they? So how dare you, America, take a look at this and feel like we are vulnerable to violent attacks no matter where we are and no matter what we're doing. Let me also just say something on behalf of the mentally ill. If you suffer from schizophrenia or bipolar disorder, you're not more likely to commit a violent crime. In fact, you're more likely to be the victim of a violent crime than the perpetrator of a violent crime. Do we know that mental illness played a part in this crime? We don't. But boy, they sure seem to know. It's funny about somebody suffering from a schizophrenic maniac attack. Very rarely do they coolly and calmly stab somebody and then leave it at that and walk around saying, I got that white girl. I got that white girl. You see, if somebody's suffering from some sort of manic attack due to their mental illness and disorder and they begin stabbing someone, it usually doesn't end with just one person, right? Right. It's funny how in America, when crime happens, those elites who are so much smarter than us, who know so much better than us, and who sanctimonious thump their chest and wag their finger at us about how we're supposed to react, not the natural, normal human reaction. No. That's where you're wrong. No. They're telling you how you're supposed to react. And when a horrible, violent, criminal act happens, it's always written off to either, well, this is why we got to do away with guns. Simpleton think. Or they'll say that, well, this is because of the economic problems in certain communities in this country, which, by the way, is really insulting to people who live in poverty who don't steal or rob or turn to drug gangs or rape or kill. How despicably insulting is it to people where they're given an excuse for committing crime because they're not making enough money? Or, of course, mental illness. Because those are really simple. You know what's harder to talk about? Culture, morals, ethics, families, religious faith, and yeah, race. And those things never get touched on. Those things are never discussed. When the fact of the matter is, those really are the root of these horrific crimes. But no, we're just going to fall back on mental illness now, or maybe the economy. I heard somebody on one of the cable news stations say, oh yeah, listen, until we tackle the problem of affordable housing, these sort of things are going to happen. Oh, I see. So this young woman got stabbed in the throat on a light rail in Charlotte, North Carolina, because the murderer couldn't afford rent. These people think you're stupid. And they try to bully you into not actually instinctively reacting in the natural human reflexive way that you should, which is there are bad people out there. And you need to do whatever you can to protect yourself and protect your family from them. And sometimes that means locking them up and throwing away the key. But yeah, he's just sick, says Whoopi Goldberg. And this is the narrative they're all going to have. Van Jones started it. We showed you this clip yesterday, but let's remind you.
We don't know why that man did what he did. We don't know how to deal with people who were hurting in the way this man was hurting. Hurt people hurt people. What happened was horrible.
Hurt people hurt people. And he was hurting. I don't know about you, but I've gone through a lot of hurt in my life. I know a lot of people who have gone through horrible hurt in their life. They don't stab people in the throat and murder them and then walk around with blood dripping from their blood-soaked hand with the weapon still clutched in your fist, saying, I got that white girl, I got that white girl. You have to have a graduate degree in anthropology or maybe women's studies to be so stupid as to think that this has to do with the murderer being hurt. Yeah, I look at this video and I see somebody hurt all right. But I don't think about the murderer and the hurt that he's feeling. This, by the way, is the same Van Jones who during the George Floyd riot said this about you.
Even the most liberal, well-intentioned white person has a virus in his or her brain that can be activated at an instant.
That virus, of course, is racism. I don't care what you hear from any right-wing MAGA commentator out there over the course of the next several days, or what you've already heard over the course of the past several days. You won't hear anything as despicable and dehumanizing and racist as what you just heard from Van Jones, talking about every white person on the planet after the George Floyd incident, where a drug addict resisted arrest and ended up dead at the hands of a police officer. Oh, and one other thing, this whole mental illness thing. Oh, he was suffering. He was hurting. He was schizophrenic. He had mental illness. A funny thing about his mental illness. We already know that he was arrested 14 times, but also his half-brother, Stacey Dijon Brown, was shot and killed a white 65-year-old man in the face while he was walking home from work 13 years ago. He used the Charlotte light rail system to flee the scene. Nice symmetry there on our light rail mass transit in Charlotte. Their father, DeCarlos Brown Sr., is also a criminal with prior arrests for breaking and entering, felony conspiracy, larceny, and possession of a weapon on a college campus. Huh. So maybe mental illness just runs in the family. And this specific strain of mental illness in the Brown family apparently triggers violent acts. It's just hurt people being hurt, Van Jones. The whole family is hurt. His brother's hurt. His dad is hurt. Yeah. Well, we have now heard from the murderer, and he has certainly gotten the memo. He is leaning into this mental illness thing, and he's either going to plead insanity and not guilty because of his mental illness or something. But here's what he has said now as this first tape has been released from his jail cell.
So you said something in your body did what?
Nah, the material, put it like this, the material using my body to stab the lady.
And so she just got stabbed.
Yeah. You know that's not me. I'm talking about just for no reason. But since they did that, now they got to investigate the material my body exposed to. Since they want to do all that, now they got to investigate.
It's funny because she's from the Ukraine. She's from Russia, and you know they got a war. They had a war going on against the United States. So I'm just trying to understand, out of all people, why her?
That's hey, it ain't. I don't have nothing. They just lashed out on her. That's what happened. They lashed out on her. Whoever was working the material, whoever was working the material, they lashed out on her.
Evil, demonic, mental illness, racist, violent criminal murderer. It doesn't make a difference to that poor young woman or her family. does it? And you can't tell me that after 14 arrests, 14 incarcerations, even if the incarcerations were a slap on the wrist, after 14 trial days, after 14 times that court-appointed defense lawyers had conversations with this guy, that they never saw some kind of behavior. I mean, if this is who this guy is, and he's now claiming that his body was injected with some foreign material that forced him to act this way outside of his control, this is the first time anybody has heard it? Or did we have a system who just knows this, hears it, digests it, and doesn't give a crap? But you're supposed to feel sympathy for the murderer. In fact, Abby Phillip was, I'll just let you watch.
Liberals have been accused of appeasing crime by saying, actually, maybe cops shouldn't be answering those calls.
But what you're
maybe there should be people who actually have expertise in mental health who should be answering those calls.
Or we bring back institutionalization, which there's been a taboo and a stigma on for a long time.
Who's going to take the call, Caroline?
I'm not sure who's going to take the call, but I do know that they should go to institutions.
I think that's my point, is that where they go
If
after
we're going
the
to
call
fund
is
the
made
institutions
is
when
a
Trump
whole
is
other
cutting
story.
funds for all of these things.
Let's talk about this executive order with institutionalization, where it essentially says anyone that's homeless or deemed mentally ill by the state can be institutionalized. First off, Trump is cutting almost every single service that would go to actually getting people mental health services or medical care. Second, that means that anyone could be deemed unhoused or mentally ill and thrown wherever Trump or an administration thinks they belong.
What programs have been shut down?
I'm just wondering. I mean,
There's actually a hospital.
Kat, let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question about that, though. If someone is in fact homeless or mentally ill, what do you think should happen to them?
We actually, in my campaign office, we use it as a mutual aid hub. So we have a lot of food and water, clothes, hygiene products that people can access at any time. We actually work a lot with homeless people, and we connect them with resources in our community. There are tons of groups in every major city, but especially in Chicago, that are looking for direct action. The Niles Township Food Pantry has a respite
mentally
center.
ill aren't the same thing.
No, but one exacerbates the other. And so
sure, but Kat, but hold on. But you have to acknowledge that there are some people who do need a long-term care and they need wraparound services, not just, piecemeal stuff. And I think
absolutely
one of the discussions that we've had earlier this week is that one of the failures that we have is that we have not figured out how to actually provide that kind of care.
Mm-hmm.
That, if someone is actually seriously mentally ill, maybe on the verge of violence, where do they go?
We're unwilling
Except
to
on the
put
street.
in
Or North Carolina, not on the verge of
We say
violence,
throw them to
actually
jail.
demonstrated violence in the past and nobody flagged it. Actually, the police, to your point, said, we're going to refer you to more resources, and that went nowhere. So there were multiple.
Nobody flagged it. He served time for his violent offenses.
Not for his schizophrenia.
Why?
That's not a crime.
That's not a crime.
No, I know, but I'm saying that was compounding this entire issue.
I know,
the
but I'm
fact that he
saying
lashed out violently on that.
I know. I'm just saying he did actually serve time for the violent offenses that he committed.
But he was a career criminal, a repeat offender who was let back onto our streets despite a really bad criminal record that suggests he should have been locked away for life because he was threatening the public. He was a menace to society.
He should have been locked away for life for what now?
He should have schizophrenia.
You want him to?
You actually said that. I can't believe you actually said that. Somebody should be locked away in jail forever for schizophrenia. Did you really say that?
Isolated.
Did you really say that?
In an institution.
Is this actually?
Institutionalized. What you're saying is that this man should have been roaming the streets.
I'm saying that you don't lock people in prison for schizophrenia.
An institution.
What kind of institution? Institutions in terms of mental health care services.
Yes.
If you're talking about providing full wraparound services for people, I understand that, but at some point, people do get out when they have been treated and rehabilitated.
Sure, but that didn't happen here. He didn't go to an institution at all.
But you're
and so he stabbed a woman.
Said he should be locked away for life.
There's thousands.
I can tell you for sure that however complex this problem may be, and by the way, it's not very complex, this ain't the forum to solve it. And why the hell are we acting like we have to reinvent a wheel here? There was a time in our society where this sort of thing was handled properly, right? You broke the law, you're a criminal, you're going to jail. Oh, you're also crazy? Okay, you're going to a criminal penitentiary that handles people who are mentally ill. And then of course, liberals in our society said, well, these are terrible places. Of course, they're terrible places. They're full of criminally insane people, violent, criminally insane people. And their solution, because they're such terrible institutions, was to just shut them down. And now those violent, criminally insane people are riding the train next to you in the seat right behind you. Oh, let's not forget also that the political left in this country want to force all of us to ride on those light rail trains because of global warming. And, you know, they don't want you driving a car. No, no, no. You should be taking mass transit. Don't worry. We're the government. We'll take care of you. We've got a train taking you wherever you want to go. Oh, say hi to the guy sitting behind you. And every time this conversation has occurred over the course of the last several days, the question of race has been brought up. And not just because the murderer is black and the victim is white, but because literally the murderer referenced the victim's race in his psychotic rant after he just stabbed her to death. And as I said yesterday, forgive us for noticing the racial aspect of this case, considering the fact that the reason this guy was out on the street after 14 arrests was solely because of his race. Because for the last 5, 10, 15 years, we've been told that our criminal justice system is systemically racist, and therefore we have to reimagine policing and reimagine criminal justice, and we need to have cashless bail, and we need to do whatever we can to get our incarcerated neighbors out of jail and back out onto the street. Why? Because of racism. Well, I'm sorry, but if you use the race of the individuals involved as a rationale for letting them out of jail and putting them on the street, then I have permission to use the race of the individuals involved to suggest that maybe we should arrest them and put them away. We're not going to unilaterally disarm over here just because you get to raise the color of someone's skin and you yell at me if I do. We don't play that game anymore. But I'll tell you one person who does play that game. There she is. Jasmine Crockett certainly couldn't let this story go by without bringing her intelligence to the conversation.
And if you really want to know who the criminals are in this country, you can Google it. You don't have to trust me. But the people that commit 80% of the most violent crimes in this country are white supremacists. Yet for whatever reason, they sit and they serve at the pleasure of the president. They are the ones that were there on January 6th, tearing our democracy down physically. And now we have them tearing us down right here from within.
I don't think those stats are accurate. And I would love to play for you the moment in this interview on CNN where the host leaned forward and said, I'm sorry, where are you getting these numbers from? Can you back that up with anything? Because that doesn't sound right. Because that, of course, didn't happen. You see, when Jasmine Crockett says something like that 80% of the violent crime in America is perpetrated by white supremacists, we just have to accept it. In fact, we need to trigger new policies in this country to accommodate her rant. But if you acknowledge the reality of the case of black on white crime and black on black crime in this country and the percentage of black men who commit these crimes in proportion to their percentage in our total population, well, you know what's going to happen to you. I have a lot more to say about Jasmine Crockett, but none of it is as good as what this woman had to say.
I'm sorry, but Jasmine Crockett is a literal fucking idiot. And now I see why my mom and my dad like Jasmine Crockett. And you know why they like Jasmine Crockett? Because of the color of her fucking skin. And I don't know if they think that they're doing the right thing because we need more black people and Congress and da-da-da-da. The answer is no, we do not. The thing is, people need to be elected because they're qualified for the position, not because of their gender and the color of their fucking skin. She is horrible.
Broken Wi-Fi 101 on TikTok is the hero that we need right now. And she speaks for tens of millions, and I'd vote for her. Certainly over Jasmine Crockett. Story's not going away. We're going to continue talking about it. We all saw our daughters, our sisters, our mothers, our aunts. We saw every woman that we know in the place of that poor dead victim on that train, and we can't erase that image from our minds. This is not going to end. In fact, this is a galvanizing moment, It's a tipping point in our society, and we're going to lead that conversation along with our colleagues on this platform to make sure that her death will not be in vain. Stand by here. There we go. So the first excerpt of Kamala Harris's tell-all book about her time in the Biden White House and, of course, her 107-day presidential campaign has now been released in The Atlantic. We're going to read a little bit of it together, but nothing is more priceless and precious and amusing than watching Joe and Mika deal with their golden child, the woman they wanted to ascend to the presidency, throw their favorite president of all time, Joe Biden, right under the treads of that giant Greyhound bus that's about to roll over the entire Biden legacy. We knew this was coming. We hoped it was coming. We've had the popcorn popped for weeks, and now it's time. Kamala Harris is taking no prisoners because she's an awful, awful human being. Here's Mika and Joe announcing the news of this book excerpt to their audience this morning. Enjoy.
Okay. Yes. The Atlantic has published an excerpt from former Vice President Kamala Harris's forthcoming new book entitled 107 Days. And in it, Harris details the challenges she faced when Joe Biden dropped out of the race and she was suddenly tapped to run for president. In it, she writes, during all those months of growing panic, should I have told Joe to consider not running? Perhaps. It's Joe and Jill's decision. We all said that, like a mantra, as if we'd all been hypnotized. Was it grace or was it recklessness? In retrospect, I think it was recklessness. The stakes were simply too high. This wasn't a choice that should have been left to an individual's ego, an individual's ambition. It should have been more than a personal decision. I was well aware.
Yeah, all right, let's pause there for just a second. By the way, there's so much I have to say about this. It's one of those stories where I absolutely loathe everybody involved here. You know how I feel about Joe Biden. I think he's one of the awful people in American politics over the last 5 decades. And that was not a new revelation. I said it back when he was vice president, back when he was still a senator. I said it about him. He's a loathsome, loathsome, horrible person. He's everything that's wrong with American politics. Jill Biden is one of the most opportunistic, maniacal, selfish people that you will ever meet in American politics. Nobody likes her, by the way. And of course, there's Kamala Harris, who is a complete and total dolt, a duplicitous, two-faced, liar, disloyal, who will change policies on the turn of a dime if she thinks it'll help her political ambitions. So forgive me for my glee as I see them all turn their guns on each other in the circular firing squad. Quickly, during all those months of growth. Oh, wait, actually, Mika said something here at first. I want to just say, I love that the headline of the Atlantic story is the constant battle. Oh, what a fighter she is. Listen to this.
Dropped out of the race and she was suddenly tapped to run for president.
Yeah, did you catch that? Joe Biden dropped out of the race and Kamala Harris was tapped. She was tapped. Are you kidding me? She stabbed everybody in the back. She pushed everybody out of the way. She had her tapped. She sharpened her elbows and slammed everyone in the throat to keep them out of her way to grab that brass wing. She wasn't tapped. Who tapped her? Well, actually, that's a whole other story. She did get tapped a bit in the early days of her career. Ask Willie Brown. Okay, take this. This is an incredibly, incredibly revealing statement. I know that as you heard Mika read it, the wasn't a choice that should have been left to an individual's ego and individual's ambition. As you hear Mika read this again, I know that your instinct is to think that she's talking about Joe Biden. I don't think she is. As you hear this one more time, imagine Jill Biden. Just for a moment, set Joe aside for a second. Who does this better describe, Joe or Flotus?
In retrospect, I think it was recklessness. The stakes were simply too high. This wasn't a choice that should have been left to an individual's ego, an individual's ambition. It should have been more than a personal decision.
She's talking about Jill. Let me tell you, there will be retaliation against Kamala Harris. I assure you there will be. And everyone who worked in the Biden White House has tons of dirt, like ugly, dirty garbage on Kamala Harris, and it's all going to come down on her head. That's why we're excited about this. Not because she's trashing the Bidens. I mean, please. But because she's going to get trashed right back. And I'm telling you, Jill has never liked her, and she has never liked Jill. And that's who she's talking about right here. It wasn't Joe's ego or ambition. He didn't have enough mental capacity to have an ego or ambition. And he was already president of the United States. What ambition did you have more than that? It was her. It was Jill. And I love it. All right, more.
I was well aware of my delicate status. Lore has it that every outgoing chief of staff always tells the incoming president's chief of staff, rule number 1, watch the VP. I often learned that the president's staff was adding fuel to negative narratives that sprang up around me. When the stories were unfair or inaccurate, the president's inner circle seemed fine with it. Indeed, it seemed as if they decided I should be knocked down a little bit more.
All right, I want to jump in here one more time, just in terms of DC insider stuff. This is one of the most cowardly, despicable things this woman can do. Let me explain. She was vice president of the United States. She was a senator. She was the nominee for president of the United States. And she's throwing Biden's staff under the bus. This is specifically directed at the chief of staff, the comms people, the domestic and foreign policy advisors who worked for Joe Biden. These aren't people who make the big bucks. These aren't people who get all of the fame and glory of running for elected office and all the perks. These are the people who make a White House run, like them or not, agree with them or not. These are not the people who are going to be able to sell a $10 million book deal like Kamala Harris. And she's attacking them, not Biden, attacking Biden and Jill as well, but now she's throwing the staff under the bus. And here's the other thing that's incredibly cowardly about it. She's not naming any names. Now, you may rationalize that, and she may even rationalize that as, oh, well, that would be too much to actually name Ron Klain, the former chief of staff, or to name Jen Psaki, the comms director. That would be even worse. No. Actually, that would take some balls. That would actually show some character to name names. Because when you don't name names, well, first of all, when you do name names and you say, yeah, Ron Klain did this, and Jen Psaki did that, and Karine Jean-Pierre did this, and it screwed me, then they have a chance to respond. They have a chance to defend themselves. They have a chance to show their receipts. That's number one. Number two, when you don't name any names, then you're actually pointing the finger at everyone. Now, everyone who worked in the Biden White House, the chief of staff's office, the domestic and foreign policy office, everyone who worked in the Eisenhower executive office building, everyone who worked in the West Wing, everybody who worked in the comms department, they're all implicated. Because when you don't point the finger and name names specifically, when you're trashing people for apparently undermining you because you were such a glorious, impressive, magnificent vice president, don't make me laugh. When you just say it was the entirety of the staff, then you're throwing everyone who worked in that White House. And let me tell you something. That sort of thing, it doesn't go over very well in Washington, D.C. This is going to boomerang on Kamala Harris like you won't believe. And it's going to be, did I say glorious? It's going to be glorious. And we're just scratching the surface. Hang on. Wait until you see the Morning Joe people react to this.
Their thinking was zero sum. If she's shining, he's dimmed. None of them grasped that if I did well, he did well. That given the concerns about his age, my visible success as his vice president was vital. It would serve as a testament to his judgment in choosing me and reassurance that if something happened, the country was in good hands.
Well,
that is from Kamala Harris's new book.
Look at their faces. Like they are stunned. They are absolutely stunned. I love Joe's like, well, see, understand these two people for an entire year told us, number one, that Biden was in what was it that Joe said? This is the best version of Joe Biden I've ever seen in my life. You can't handle how great Joe Biden is. And then when that was no longer a lie that he could continue, they immediately pivoted to Kamala Harris as a glorious, transcendent political genius. We are honored to have her walking amongst us. She'll be the greatest president ever. And now look at how they have to deal with this. It's all right. All right, I'll stop.
Yeah. But I'm just to say, so Willie or whoever who wants to take the jump ball here? Rev, I'll go to you. So you know politics. I mean, you've run for president. A couple of things here. I can understand everybody wringing their hands saying, why didn't we step in? Why didn't we intervene? I can understand the Vice President Harris doing that. But people that know Joe Biden and Jill Biden know, speaking of jump balls, nobody was going to take that ball from their hands. They were determined. I mean, I talk to a lot of people. I do a lot of people around the Bidens, and the further you get away from it, the further you realize that Joe Biden and Jill Biden were not going to be talked out of anything until the pressure was overwhelming. That's number one. Number two, vice presidents are treated badly by the president's staff. Ask Joe Biden. There were times he was treated absolutely horrifically by Barack Obama's staff. Just no respect. And sadly, that happened. So people that may be saying, oh, well, Kamala Harris is bitter. Nah, you know, this unfortunately is a dynamic that happens in every White House.
There's a whole show.
No, actually, if I may, and there is a few more minutes of this, and we're going to watch every glorious bit of it because certainly we want Al Sharpton's genius and wisdom. But I'm crying foul on this. I'm throwing a flag. That's absolute bullshit, Joe Scarborough. She was treated better than any vice president I can remember. Do you remember how they called this the Biden-Harris administration? That's never been done before. They had her name on the letterhead. They had her name on the website. That doesn't happen. You go to the White House website right now. Does it say the Trump-Vance administration? Of course it doesn't. That never happens. It's true that the Obama people hated Joe Biden. That's true. They did treat him shabbily. You know that the entire time Joe Biden was vice president for 8 years, he was never invited to the private residence of the president on the second floor of the White House for dinner. Not once. Yeah. First time he was ever up there was when he was actually president of the United States. They hated Joe Biden. They're all two-faced liars. But let me just be clear. They helped her so much. Mark Halperin's been reporting on this too, by the way. Over on his podcast, that the Biden team bailed her out of so many messes that she made for herself. They try, and part of it was because Joe Biden was sympathetic to her because he knew how hard it was to be a vice president. And so he wanted to help her along. But again, I'll just leave it at the fact that they let her have her name on everything. When they would give a press briefing, it wasn't the Biden administration, it was the Biden-Harris administration. It was outrageous what they did for her. So I'm sorry, Joe, that's just a lie. There's not always these issues with an administration and a vice president's staff. Not even close.
About it.
No, there's no doubt about it. One of the reasons I wanted to take the jump ball on this is I remember at the beginning, I was among those saying to Biden when he won the nomination, we want to see a black woman on the ticket. Right. He had already committed a black woman in the Supreme Court, which he did. Right. But our argument was, well, suppose you don't get elected. We want to see one on the ticket. And to our surprise, he chose Kamala Harris, who had debated him pretty viciously, right? According to some feeling during the thing. He suggested he was racist. That's correct.
Good on the debate
And to his credit, he felt she was the best candidate.
Yeah.
So she came in to a staff that already was saying, why did he pick her? Mm-hmm. She ambushed us. So she was not in a position to really counsel that you ought to step aside when they never really, the staff, acclimated to her. And I think that anyone that got to know President Biden as I did, know that it was him and Jill that were going to make the final decision. Right. So here's somebody that already was sort of in the midway house that was going to jump over the staff and go. I think that she was in a very peculiar position. Though the public would say, why didn't you say something? I don't think she was in a position.
No, she
and
just
I think
wasn't.
at the end, I don't think she was reckless. I think she did what she could do.
And by the way, Joe Biden weren't listening. They weren't going to. If she went in, she could go in and say it all the time. They weren't listening. I will say, John, as we talk about Kamala Harris, there's also just the truth too. Early on, she did herself no favors. I mean, she had a terrible time with her staff the first year or two. It was the White House was having to do triage on her staffing problems. Everybody leaving. So she had a rocky start, but she certainly leveled out and started doing, I think, very well.
And stepped up during the campaign in an unbelievable way.
By the way, that's the thing that's always forgotten. She was like, I remember calling her one time going, I wasn't sure. You're up on stage. You look like Evita, when she was going to like 15,000 people events and they're all screaming and going crazy. And I was like, never saw that coming.
Yeah, she found her voice in the vice presidency. People around Biden even grudgingly admit that around when the Dobbs decision came down, that's when she really stepped up.
Right.
And then ran as good of a campaign as she could have. Most people believe in those 107 days. Yeah.
With Trump? My God.
And had a strong debate performance. She also writes in the book, certainly there's, as Mika just read, questions there about Biden's decision to run. But she also addresses the other part, like, did she think he was capable of holding the office? And she says this: Joe Biden was a smart guy with long experience and deep conviction. On his worst day, he was more deeply knowledgeable, more capable of exercising judgment, and far more compassionate than Donald Trump on his best. But she does say, but at age 81, Joe got tired. I don't believe it was incapacity. If I believed that, I would have said so. Mm-hmm. As loyal as I am to President Biden, I am more loyal to my country.
Yeah, well, she's not loyal to either. She's not loyal to either. And that's a lie. And now she's writing off Biden as, he was just tired. He was tired. That's all it was. And I do love, if I can just go back for a moment, about, but she was a perfect campaigner. I love that they have rewritten history about what a great campaigner she was and what a great candidate she was. And she ran the best possible race. She lost across the board. She lost the popular vote to Donald Trump, which is something they told us would never, ever happen. And frankly, most of us didn't think would ever happen. She lost every single battleground state. She was worse than Hillary Clinton was. And let's not forget that as the candidate for president, she had one major decision to make, to demonstrate to the entire nation what kind of wisdom and intelligence and sober thinking she would bring to the job of president. That one decision was who her running mate would be. You think about this. This is the most critical and important choice one individual can make. You see, we all elect a president, but the person who's one heartbeat away from the presidency, that all boils down to this one person. That's incredible power, that they get to single-handedly name the person who could very well be the next president of the United States if something horrible happens. And using that wisdom, that intelligence, that sober thinking, and circumspect inner thought, she came up with Tim Walz. And yet they refuse to acknowledge the fact that she was a disaster. And I got to tell you, they keep saying this over and over and over again. What a great campaigner she was. What a great candidate she was. She was better than we ever expected. And I got to tell you, guys, we got to start beating the drum right now. Every single politician, when interviewed, from Gavin Newsom to Josh Shapiro to Ro Khanna to who else are they throwing out there as potential candidates for president? Every single name that you hear as a potential candidate for president for the Democrats, you should just ask them, hold on a minute. You said Kamala Harris should be president in 2024, and you said she was a great candidate. So why aren't you backing her to get the nomination again? She only had 107 days. You should give her a fair chance now. Gavin Newsom, why on earth would you challenge Kamala Harris? You told her that she was perfect, that she would be great, that she's a brilliant. I want their answers. I want to know what's the logical rationale behind any of these Democrats stepping up and challenging her. Pete Buttigieg. Why shouldn't Kamala Harris get a full chance to run for president? She should be renominated by acclamation. You did it last time without a primary. You might as well do it again this time. Just go straight to the convention. We want Kamala. Let's go. Meanwhile, there's a little bit more. We've got a few more excerpts from the book. Of all the people in the White House, I was in the worst position to make the case that he should drop out. I knew it would come off as to him as incredibly self-serving if I advised him not to run. Well, why? You've had 4 years to build your relationship with him. I thought that he trusted your judgment. I thought that you were a close advisor. I thought that you were somebody that he would turn to. In fact, wouldn't they used to always say that she would be the last person in the room when a big important decision was made? I've got to think, after all those important decisions that were made, you know, the Afghanistan pullout, the border crisis, the you know, how to fight inflation, you know, Ukraine, Hamas. I've got to think at this point, after 3.5 years, Kamala, you've built a level of trust with the president that he would never think that you had ulterior motives if you gave him your sober and wise advice that perhaps maybe he shouldn't run for re-election. I'm sorry, I think I just bit my tongue because I had it so far in my cheek while I said that. That hurt. He would see it as naked ambition, perhaps as poisonous disloyalty, even if my only message was, don't let the other guy win. Do you know why he would see it as naked ambition and poisonous disloyalty? Because it is naked ambition and poisonous disloyalty. You know how I know she's not loyal? Because she wrote this book. And this is the first excerpt. It's glorious. It's Joe and Jill's decision. We all said that like a mantra, as if we'd been hypnotized. Was it grace? Was it recklessness? In retrospect, I think it was recklessness. The stakes were simply too high. This wasn't a choice that should have been left to an individual's ego or individual's ambition. It should have been more than a personal decision. Like I said, I think she's talking about Jill there. All right, here we go. It was just after 5 p.m. in Houston, and the president would be addressing the nation from the Oval Office later that evening. I watched in at the hotel that night. It was a good speech, drawing on the history of the presidency to locate his own place within it. But as my staff later pointed out, it was almost 9 minutes into the 11-minute address before he mentioned me. The ego on this woman. This is the speech that Joe Biden made when he explained to the American people why he wouldn't be running for re-election. And do you really believe it was the staff that pointed that out? Oh, no. You know Kamala was watching this thing saying, mention me. When is he going to talk about me? When's he going to bring me up? This is about me, damn it. It's about me. A little bit more. When Fox News attacked me on everything from my laugh to my tone of voice. By the way, we didn't attack you for your laugh. We loved your laugh. Are you kidding? We played it over and over and over again. We didn't attack you. We gloried in that. And let's not forget your speech, unburdened by the past. We can see what can be unburdened by the past. What can be unburdened by the past. When you repeat the same speech over and over again with the very same hand motions about 125 times to the same audiences over the course of 6 months, we don't attack that. Are you kidding? We promoted it. We loved it. To my laugh, to the tone of my voice, to whom I dated in my 20s. Is that what the kids are calling it now? Dating? Did you date? Oh, it's a date. Okay. Or claimed I was a DEI hire. Wait, we just heard from Al Sharpton that you were legitimately, by every definition, a DEI hire. Al Sharpton and the congressman from South Carolina, they demanded that Biden select a black woman. Maybe you don't know what DEI hire means. When somebody specifically goes out of their way and says, we're going to set standards aside, we're going to set qualifications aside. When I choose my vice president, the only thing or the most important thing I'm looking at is that it's a black woman. That is, by definition, a DEI hire. You are hired to be diverse and inclusive. Claimed I was a DEI hire. They're bragged about how you were a DEI hire. The White House rarely pushed back with my actual resume. 2 terms elected DA, top cop in the second largest Department of Justice in the United States, senator representing 1 in 8 Americans. Lorraine Voles, my chief of staff, constant. Wait, which chief of staff was that? Was that the 7th chief of staff that you had or the 8th chief of staff that you had? I'm just trying to keep count. Constantly had to advocate for my role at events. She's not going to stand there like a potted plant. Give her 2 minutes of remarks. Have her introduce the president. Can you imagine J.D. Vance's people doing this in the Trump White House? This is sad. And the fact that she's so tone deaf that she thinks it's okay, that she in some way looks noble for writing this crap. God, what a nightmare this woman is. Oh, and this one, I love this one. Do you remember the clip? We played it here on the show quite a bit when she was in France and she said something about the plan. You remember that? And then she laughed at herself with her cackle. We have the plan, right? I said the plan with exaggerated emphasis and air quotes. Fox News, the New York Post, and Newsmax went wild. Hey, you know what? I'm getting sick of this. What about us? What about our show? We went wild too. Can we not get a little love, or for that matter, hate from the former vice president? And the problem is we're not higher enough on her algorithm. Could you all give us a like and a subscribe? Leave some comments here. Say something nasty about Kamala Harris, just so it boosts our video that much more. We got to get on her platform. Newsmax, come on. Newsmax went wild, claiming I'd faked a French accent. She did fake a French accent. This was total nonsense, but the White House seemed glad to let reporting about my gaffe. It was a gaffe. She's an idiot. Overwhelm the significant thought in foreign relations I'd achieved. She didn't achieve anything. Worse, I often learned that the president's staff was adding fuel to negative narratives that sprang up around me. One narrative that took a stubborn hold was that I had a chaotic office and unusually high staff turnover during my first year. Well, that's because it's true. That's because it's true. Our friend Western Lensman, subscribe to his account on X. We love the videos that Western Lensman's put out. He uncovered this video interview that she gave for 60 Minutes, which really does. I mean, knowing all of this, knowing everything that was going on between her office and the White House office and how she was just dying for Joe Biden to step down, but she couldn't say it because she would be seen as disloyal, but she didn't want the egos to take over and it shouldn't have been all this stuff that she's saying now about the decision-making process. Watch this again when she was asked about Joe Biden and his health and whether he was running for re-election. Watch her face as she chokes on the bile gurgling up her esophagus during this moment.
You have that clip, Larry?
Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, and that was such a great buildup, wasn't it? Here we go.
We were talking to some Democratic donors, and they have told us that should something befall President Biden and he is not able to run, that there would be a free-for-all for who would run as president. You are in the spot that would be unnatural for you to step up, but we're hearing from donors that they would not naturally fall into line. Why is that?
Well, first of all, I'm not going to engage in that hypothetical because Joe Biden is very much alive and running for re-election. So
but you do know, I mean, that is a concern and a legitimate concern, I would say.
I hear from a lot of different people, a lot of different things, but let me just tell you, I'm focused on the job. I truly am. Our democracy is on the line, Bill. And I frankly, in my head, do not have time for parlor games when we have a president who is running for re-election. That's it.
Oh, man. Listen, I know this is all, it's in the past. Let's move on. Let's not keep talking about, no. Hell no. I mean, this is in the news today because these are the first excerpts from the book, but we are going to beat this drum as much as we can. Don't you ever forget that the media sold this woman on you. That the Bidens and the Democrat Party sold this woman on you. They told you that she was glorious and she was wonderful and she was the greatest and she was amazing and she should be president. And thank God cooler heads prevailed. Thank God the American people did the right thing. Thank God we are where we are right now. But I'll say it again, one more time. Pop the popcorn. This ain't over. This is the first shot. Just wait till the Bidens retaliate. It's going to get even more glorious. It's going to get greater. And I say it again to all my friends who are Democrats, to the media, please explain yourself. You told us how great she was going to be. You keep telling us that she ran the perfect campaign. The only reason she lost was because she only had 107 days. So explain to me, why bother going through a primary process? Nominate her again. Why would anyone challenge this incredible, transcendent political leader, this genius who walks among us? Please, we want Kamala. God, do we want Kamala? We've got some incredible economic news right now, and it's funny because I was sure the media and the Democrats and all the geniuses in New York and D.C. told us that what's happening today would never happen. You know, all the smarties, all the brilliant minds that know everything there is to know about an economy, they told us that Trump was ruining the world's economy and certainly the American economy and ruining your 401k. You might want to take a look because, well, it's a pretty exciting day right now. Also, we were told that the Biden economy was really fantastic, that Trump had actually inherited a really strong economy with huge record-breaking job growth, right? Remember all of that? Well, it turns out that we've got some new numbers that suggest that all of it was a fraud. We'll show you a little bit more on that, but we'll start with Abby Phillip last night, of all people, who was forced to report on the fact that all those Biden job numbers weren't quite what they appeared to be.
Tonight, did Donald Trump inherit a weaker economy than everyone thought? Well, a revised labor report shows that the economy added nearly 1 million fewer jobs than initially estimated for that year ending in March. Now, that is the biggest revision since 2009.
Yeah, it sure is. That's gigantic. And by the way, it comes on the heels of last year's revision that was about 700,000 or 800,000 jobs. It's remarkable, but this doesn't make any sense because just a couple of weeks ago, Donald Trump fired the person who was in charge of the Bureau of Labor Statistics because all of the jobs numbers kept getting reported incorrectly and all the numbers were being revised down. And I was sure all of the experts and geniuses told us that this person in charge of the Bureau of Labor Statistics, that they were competent, they were great, they were brilliant, and Trump only fired her because he was unhappy with the numbers that were coming in. You know, I'm mad at this report. I want the numbers to be better, so I'm just going to fire somebody because they tell us he's a temperamental, idiotic jerk, right? Remember all of that? Yeah, I'm sure you do. In fact, here was a conversation about that very thing on MSNBC just a couple of weeks ago.
If you're going to take BLS data, if you're going to say jobs numbers, we're just not going to release them, or you're going to change or corrupt the inflation data, that will come into conflict with what people are experiencing, Justin.
More than that, it will come in conflict with what they get. Remember that, you know, if Trump's tariffs cause inflation, and there's already signs that they are, that's going to undermine the purchasing power of seniors. Now, fortunately, our Social Security system says we index, which is to say adjust Social Security to take account of inflation. Now, what happens if he imposes those tariffs, they raise the cost of living, and he instructs the head of the BLS, because it's very uncomfortable to admit that inflation was high, instead to construct some other measure which gives us lower inflation. What that does is constructs a new economic reality in which seniors won't get the cost of living adjustments that they need. Mm-hmm. The thing is, these statistics are embedded in our society in ways that many of us do not immediately imagine, but we're all served by them being accurate. And they do things like adjust the cost of living. We have trillions of dollars in bonds that are tied to them and so on.
Yeah, I love it when people with an Australian accent are lecturing me about how our economy is supposed to work and how the transparency in our government and accuracy in our government works. But he does make a good point. These numbers, whether it's the jobs numbers or whether it's the inflation numbers, they are embedded in so many aspects of how our economy works, how our government functions, how Social Security inflation adjusted raises are calculated, and how businesses and government are supposed to make projected estimates for their growth based on what job numbers in the economy are looking at. So they're making the point that we need to have accuracy from these government institutions that are supposed to provide us valid numbers. That conversation you just saw came on the heels of Trump firing the person who was in charge of the unemployment numbers at BLS, and their hair was on fire because, well, Trump's just going to cook the books. Trump's just going to put someone in there to lie to us. We need these numbers to be accurate. Yeah, we need the numbers to be accurate. That's why that person got fired. And now here we are today with yet another adjustment down of 900,000 jobs that they got wrong, all during Biden's final year, all during the campaign year. 900 plus thousand jobs that they over-reported right when Joe Biden was running for re-election. Steve Moore, economist at Heritage Foundation, has actually looked at the last several years of revisions that have been done going back to 2022. The last 3 benchmark revisions, 1.766 million jobs down. The monthly revisions going back to January of 2022, an additional 1.83 million jobs. The Bureau of Labor Statistics over the course of the last 3 years with their benchmark revisions and their monthly revisions have been off by close to 3 million jobs, all during the Biden presidency. And yet we were told when Trump fired this person because of obvious incompetence that he was the problem. And yet, even with all of that, today's consumer price index number came in, and I'm going to let CNBC tell you exactly what it looks like.
PPI, wholesale inflation for August, expected to be up 0.3. No. Down 0.1%. Down 0.1. Wow. That would be the first negative number since April of this year when it was minus 0.2. If you strip out food and energy, we're also expecting up 0.3. It's minus 0.1 as well. Minus 0.1, the same. Last time we had a minus number was April, and we're comping to minus 0.2 in April. And I do want to point out, last month we had up 0.9 on both those variables. They were the highest going back to March of 22. They just were revised slightly lower to 0.7, so 0.7% for each of those in the rearview mirror for July. Now let's look at ex-food, energy, and trade. Finally, as expected, up 0.3, which follows up 0.6, unrevised at this point. Up 0.3 would actually be the smallest, going back to 0 in June of this year. Now the year over year, in my opinion, these are the most important. And boy, I'm surprised. Real progress here. 2.6 on year over year headline. We are expecting 3.3 in the rearview mirror, 3.3. 2.6 will be the lowest since it was 2.4 in June, and it underscores whether it was tariff driven or not. Those little blips seem to be moving back into the sunset. Year over year ex-food energy, 2.8%. That's core 2.8, expecting 3.5. In the rearview mirror, a whopping 3.7. 2.8 would equate to the smallest since June of this year, but that was the smallest going all the way back to April of 24.
So in case you missed all of that, let me just say, great news across the board on inflation and price index at every single level, either beating expectations. In many cases, they were expecting an increase of 0.3 of a point. It actually went down 0.1 of a point in many factors. The very worst that happened was that the expected rate of increase on food and fuel ended up matching exactly what was anticipated, an increase in 0.3. Nothing but good news on inflation numbers. And see, here's where I'm confused, because all these geniuses, all of the people who know way better than Donald Trump, because, Donald Trump's just a reality TV star. What does he know? They all told us that right now we would be suffering from outrageous inflation because we're several months into the president's tariffs policies. And yet the opposite has happened. What the hell is going on here? Well, we had a lot of people, and I got to say, in the business sector, you see something you don't often ever see from CNN, MSNBC, the broadcast networks, the people who read teleprompters, who have very nice haircuts and report on the economy. They're wrong a lot, and they're often wrong because they have a bias, but you can't fudge numbers. And one thing I want to say about the people who work on the business networks, when they're wrong, they cop to it. They admit it, because that goes to their credibility. When you work at MSNBC or CNN and ABC, you're wrong. Oh, please. Being on the left means never having to say you're sorry. You just move on. You just move on to the next outrage. They never keep a toll. But in the business, financial news world, you got to cop to when you were wrong. And these guys, I got to hand it to them. They're admitting they were wrong. Watch this.
There's the exporter, there's the importer, and there's the consumer. And so far, the consumer is carrying the least of the burden. I can tell you what's going on right now in companies is they're going product by product, going through the elasticities, what they think the consumer can absorb in terms of price increase without destroying demand. And they're finding out that they cannot pass through as much of the price increase as they want. Did
you catch that? Do you remember when everyone said a tariff is a tax and the American consumer is going to have to pay those tariff taxes? So this is going to be a problem because it's a government policy that increases the price of things passed on to the consumer. And that means that we'll have more inflation. Did you catch what he just said? Sector by sector by sector, businesses and industries who were paying these tariffs have had to factor out how much of those tariffs they can pass on to the consumer and still be able to sell their product or sell their service that's been tariffed. And for the most part, they've decided to absorb these costs. They've decided one way or the other, it's better to do that than increase prices on those goods or products or services. In other words, the businesses are paying it and not passing it on to the consumer. Now, you may be angry about that because you own stock in those businesses. And if they're not making as much profit because of the tariffs, that's going to affect the stock price or it's going to affect how they hire people. But so far, we haven't seen any of that either. And certainly the initial effects of those tariffs, we haven't seen in one bit. And by the way, while all of that is going on with the economy and do you see all the green on the screen with the markets? While all of that is going on, the government treasury is bringing in more money through tariffs, where we've had a couple of months now where we've been operating at a surplus instead of the deficits that we've had for several years. And even more so, Trump has been able to use these tariffs and the threats of more tariffs to be able to negotiate better trade deals with these countries and even use them to leverage, in Europe certainly, better policies with regard to NATO and military spending by those countries. In other words, Trump's been right. Scott Bessent's been right. Lutnick's been right. Rubio's been right. And to watch all of the people on the business morning shows today admit to this has been amazing. Here's the CEO of Wells Fargo, who, again, months ago, was screaming from the rooftops that the economy was about to descend into the lower depths of hell.
In our own data, things are remarkably stable. I mean, we look at, I know you guys have talked about it this morning and other times, consumer spend continues at the same year-over-year pace across almost all wealth levels. Consumer credit is as good as it's been in the last 6 months. In fact, it's probably trending a touch better. Companies are in really great shape. We look at signs for any kind of change, and you just don't see it. Having said that, there is this big dichotomy between higher income and lower income consumers, which continues and is a real issue. And when you look at just the overall data in terms of jobs, it's undeniable in terms of just job creation. So yeah, things are actually feel very good today, certainly relative to what you think they could be.
That's right. And regarding jobs, by the way, the job creation has all been for American workers. If anyone has lost their jobs, and there have been job losses over the course of the last several months, but almost all of them have been either government workers or non-citizen workers, most of whom were in the country illegally, which, by the way, last I checked, is exactly what Donald Trump proposed for this economy and promised for this economy. The good news just kept on coming. Look at all that green. Look at all those up arrows here in the futures right before the markets opened a couple of hours ago.
You're on set with me. You had quite a reaction to this number, and Lauren pointing out, look at the market. Market turned around.
I've been fist pumping, and people couldn't see me doing it, but I'm doing it now. This is fantastic news. Producer prices
much lower than we thought. So I actually, as it turns out, am wrong, and I'm thrilled I'm wrong, because I thought we were going to see some of the inflation data, or rather some of the tariff impact in this inflation data. We haven't seen it. 2.6% was the PPI. We thought it was going to be 3.3. Cheryl, this is just such wonderful news. I'm thrilled. And it also means, yeah, we're getting a rate cut in a week.
Yeah, that's the other thing. You think things are good right now. Just wait until we get that rate cut. That should hopefully help the real estate market. It might help the refinance market and allow businesses who were planning on ramping up manufacturing in America to be able to purchase more equipment and more manufacturing facilities at lower interest rates as they finance those investments in the American worker and American manufacturing. Don't mean to be too much of a cheerleader here. I'm just telling you that after week after week after week of naysayers, of negativity, of people telling you that Trump is ruining our economy, so far, they've all been wrong. And it's kind of fun to see them sort of cop to it and say, wow, I'm surprised, but this is good. Objectively speaking, this is good news. Let's circle back real fast, if we could, in Jen Psaki fashion, about those Biden job numbers and what a disaster this adjustment has been about the overcounted jobs during the Biden presidency. Fox News summed it up pretty brilliantly yesterday.
There's new economic data that just came out a few moments ago, and it shows the U.S. job market was much weaker than thought back in 2024. Edward Lawrence is live from the White House, and so this number was eye-popping. So what does it mean about the situation that we're in now?
Yeah, it really was. And this is a preliminary benchmark revision, and it was down 911,000 jobs.
That's right. In other words, 911,000 jobs. In other words, the Biden economy was fraudulent. The Biden jobs numbers that they all kept repeating over and over again. When you were sitting there and you were seeing the prices at the supermarkets and you knew people who had lost their jobs and had never been able to get rehired, when you knew how bad the economy was, and Biden and Karine Jean-Pierre and Kamala Harris and everybody on cable and broadcast news kept telling you, you're stupid, you're crazy, you don't know what you're talking about. It's the strongest economy on the planet. This is the greatest job growth we've had in American history. And you knew it wasn't true, and you were right. It was all bullshit. Whether it was intentional bullshit or whether they're just incompetent in delivering the jobs numbers, either way, you were lied to. One other thing about the economy right now and how prices are really stabilizing. We told you this during the campaign, and we told you right after the president took office that his executive orders with regard to gas and oil exploration and drilling and refining in the United States of America would be the single most important pivot point for inflation and prices in our economy, because everything relies on fuel. And Joe Biden eliminated all of our domestic oil and gas production and new exploration. He stopped pipelines from being utilized, and he put us back onto the world market, forcing Europe to purchase from Russia that fueled their tanks and their war machines so that they could invade Ukraine. The bad decisions followed bad decisions followed bad decisions. It made gas and oil prices skyrocket in this country, and it was a huge factor with regard to inflation in America. Well, we came off the summer Labor Day weekend just last week, and lo and behold, as gas and oil prices have been climbing year over year over year, and the summer is always the most expensive time for fuel prices. Take a look at this report from last week.
Guess what? The prices are going back down. And there's good reason to believe, Steve, especially now that we're getting away from the summer and some of the mixed fuels, that could keep going in the right direction. Your thought? Guess what?
There you go. All the gas prices came down. And this was as of Labor Day weekend, when usually the summer brings higher gas prices. So here's what I'm confused about. And maybe you can help me out. Maybe you can explain this to me, because I'm not a genius about this stuff. I'm just like you. I'm just a regular American who observes the news, observes information, and tries to make it all make sense. And hopefully our daily conversation helps you make sense of it too. Here's what I'm confused about. You see, I've been told who all the geniuses are in Washington, D.C. and on television. I've been told who all the people in the Senate and Congress and all the people who really know way more than you do. You know, the people who are like Harvard professors and, you know, people like, like Elizabeth Warren, for instance. These people who were geniuses, who have forgotten more about economics than we'll ever know, and who deride and criticize and ridicule Donald Trump. For what does he know? He's a reality TV star. He built casinos. He doesn't know anything. Well, this is the sort of thing that the geniuses like Elizabeth Warren were saying about the president's policies and the economy not too long ago.
You know, keep in mind, Caitlin, that many economists, in fact, the majority, have said either we are headed into a recession or we are already in a recession.
Yeah. See, we've got a GDP of over 3%. We've got prices down. We've got just job market stabilizing. The tariffs are taking hold. And I don't get it. Can you figure this out? I thought she was the smart one. We've got a recession coming, she says. And look at her. I mean, she's wearing the glasses. She's got the haircut. Not to mention those high Native American cheekbones. Clearly, she knows more than you or I or that buffoon Donald Trump. Or what about these three? I mean, just look at them. They're brilliant. They know more about the economy than you do. And what were they just saying about it?
I think that he lied. He lied to people and said that he was going to bring down costs on day one. And the reality is that is not at all what he's done. His tariffs, his unhinged tariff policy has raised prices for everyday Americans on everything that they need to survive.
Yeah, unhinged tariff policies raise prices on everything that you need to survive. And yet today's numbers don't seem to bear that out. I don't know. Again, I don't know these things. I'm just a stupid radio host and streamer, podcaster, and used to work on Broadway musicals. What the hell do I know about this stuff? These people are smarter than me, and they're certainly smarter than you. Maybe you can tell me. Go ahead and let us know in the comment section about why you think they got it wrong, because they're usually so smart about this stuff, aren't they? Yeah. Help us out. All right. Thanks for watching today. What a fun show we had. I appreciate you watching. Don't forget to like our video if you did like it. I'm assuming you liked, because a lot of you were there and you stuck around for a long time. So give us that thumbs up. It's super easy and it really helps us grow our audience. I appreciate it. And subscribe while you're at it. In fact, what's our subscriber number? I haven't seen it recently. Hold on. Oh, my lordy. We're just 3,000 YouTube subscribers away from the big 600K. Wow. That's crazy. All right. So tell a friend and subscribe, please, so we can build that audience, and then we'll hit our next benchmark. But we're going to do a special show when we hit 600K. Not sure what it's going to be yet. In fact, if you have recommendations, what would you like our special live stream to be just for our 600,000 subscriber? Go ahead and let us know that in the chat, too. I'm asking for a lot of things in the chats and the comments. All right, we've got some super chats that came in. Let's get to them. God's best friend with a £2 super chat. It's called An Islamic State of Mind. What's that referring to?
That's probably about the schizophrenia.
I'll go with that. God's best friend is consistent on these matters. Thank you, God's best friend. Much obliged. Tommy Radcliffe with a $4.99 super chat. For the truth, you can call him Larry. For the truth, you can call him Larry. Is that like a lyric of a song? For the truth, you can call him Larry. For the truth, you can call him Larry. Thank you. We do our best to deliver the truth. Although I always like to say, if I may, we don't necessarily deliver the truth. We deliver facts. The only place you're going to get truth is in the good book. Angela with the $2 super chat. Can we please bring back insane asylums? Thank you. I know. Yeah, this Tommy Radcliffe with a $4.99 super chat. Our founding fathers had no idea or awareness of videotape or film. There would have been no trials with this case in our Constitution. Blatant video. That's a great point. Yeah, he'll get his due process, but I don't. Isn't it funny when, by the way, I know the standards in journalism when people are broadcasting. I have to do it too on my radio show where we have even more strict standards than on a streaming show like this. But when somebody is accused of a crime, you always sort of say allegedly until they're convicted. It's just sort of the hallmarks of broadcasting and journalist journalism protocol. Isn't it hilarious where we've got the video? We have seen vividly what this man did. And they're still saying, well, he allegedly stabbed this woman in the throat. No, he stabbed her in the throat. We all see it. Convict him. Guilty. Thank you. Thank you, Tommy. Great point. God's best friend with a £2 super chat. It's not psychotic rant. It's the Dem manifesto. Yeah, I got that, white girl. I got that, white girl. Yeah, I'm sorry. And listen, if anybody has experience with people who have like schizophrenic fits, if somebody is a crazed individual, they just stab one person and then walk away. It seems way too premeditated and deliberate to me. Rosario Cicero with a $9.99 super chat. Larry, I appreciate you bleeping your curse words in studio, but could you also bleep on the curse words in the film clips you feature? Thanks for your consideration. That's harder to do, Rosario, but I hear you, I feel you, and I know that there are kids in the car sometimes or around when people are watching, but we will work on that. Kevin, can we work on that?
We can. You can blame me for this one.
It's all right. No, there's no blame. We're not blaming, except it is Kevin's fault. Thank you, Rosario. And sometimes I forget to hit my button. God's best friend with the £2 super chat. Give me 107 days salad. That should have been the name of the book. Oh, the 107 days word salad. Thanks, God's best friend. I appreciate the £2. Angela with the $5 super chat. What about the female professor hacked up while walking her dog in Auburn, Alabama? The lamestream media jumps on school shootings, but crickets. Now, yeah. This morning on my radio show in D.C., I interviewed Senator Tommy Tuberville from Alabama. Who was talking about that story as well. It's absolutely a criminal epidemic right now. And yet, Abby Phillip will say, well, crime actually is down. Yeah. Thank you, Angela. Lisa Bice with a $20 super chat. Thank you, Lisa. That's so sweet. Helped my husband take a picture with Mercedes at CPAC. Oh, I helped you. You were so gracious and sweet. We've been loyal listeners ever since. Great reads and recommendations for Town Hall. Thanks. Oh, thank you, Lisa. That's very sweet. She's referring to Mercedes Schlapp, who is one of my dear friends, like a sister. And she's, you know her from Newsmax and formerly from the first Trump administration. And yes, the CPAC conference. Thank you, Lisa. I'm sure that we love taking a picture. Did I take the picture? And did my hand shake? Because I get very nervous. Thank you, Lisa. I appreciate it. Ball State alum. Hey, Jeff. $10 super chat. Say it with me, kids. Resist we much. Yes, Al Sharpton. Oh, we got to love Al Sharpton's words of wisdom today on Morning Joe. Resist we much. Thanks, Ball State. God's best friend with £2. Don't make me sorry. Don't make her laugh. Don't make me laugh. Sorry, don't make her laugh. I know. I was actually thinking of putting a clip in of her laugh for that one cup, but that segment was already going too long, and I didn't want to trigger anybody with the laugh. But we remember. Thank you, God's best friend. Also in the UK, psychological project. By the way, it was very cool to hear where everybody learned about the show and the messages in the comment section yesterday. We got a lot of viewers in English-speaking nations in Europe and in a lot of Aussies, a lot of Australians watching us down under too. That's very cool. Psychological projection is with a £5 super chat. KH, that's Kamala Harris, said how much she loved being in the emergency room. She should have hated it because it meant there was an emergency. She called Trump unserious. Do you know what's that a reference to?
Is this about when Kamala Harris said she was always the last in the room for important decisions?
Right.
I think that's what it's referencing, being in the emergency room.
Oh, in the emergency room. Okay. Thank you. Sorry, Cycle. I'm on NyQuil. I'll be honest. Meredith made me sick. Thank you, psychological projectionist. Casperius, why so serious? $5 super chat. Is that CNBC financial guy on inflation numbers related to the enthusiastic CNN pollster guy? He reminds me of him. Oh, Harry Anton? Which guy?
The guy who did the first report on CNBC. I can't remember his name.
Santini? Or Santinelli. This guy?
Yeah, Rick Santinelli.
Yeah, he's great. Yeah, very similar type. Santinelli's the guy who started the Tea Party movement back in 2009 or 2010. Stumble Boots, you're cool. Stumble Boots, thank you for that $2 super chat. That's 2 days in a row from Clippy. God bless America with a $20 super chat. That's very generous. Thank you, God bless America. Thank you, Larry. Great time today. Yeah, we had fun today. Thank you for that. Thank you very much. And also over on Rumble, $5 from Arthur Brogdon. If tapped by Willie. Yes, she was tapped. She was tapped by Willie Brown. Well done, Arthur. How did I not have that joke? Oh, I did do that, didn't I? I said, well, she was tapped. Didn't I reference that?
Yeah, you did.
Sometimes I can't remember what I say out loud or what I say in my brain that I edit out and don't do. But yeah, she was tapped all right. No, she got tapped. $5 super chat from Arthur Brogdon. Something nasty about Harris. Bwahahaha. Yes, something nasty about Harris. Oh, there's going to be plenty of nasty things about Kamala Harris coming out. Just you wait. This is just the beginning. Shots fired. All right, gang. I think we did it. Thank you so much. Long show, but good show. If you liked any of our segments today, by the way, Kevin momentarily will be downloading, refining them, and uploading them as separate segments. You know that, right? We've got the full show that you can always refer to and share on the podcast feed. But then on the platform you're watching right now, the individual videos will be out as well. Check it out. And we'll be back tomorrow. What day is tomorrow? Thursday?
Yes.
We'll be back tomorrow, won't we? Yes, we will. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place. In the meantime, I'm on NyQuil. I'm going to go sleep. My name is Larry O'Connor, and you can call me Larry.